Yep. Awesome people, both of them.
Hello,
Not all the doctors
everyone, and welcome to this latest live episode of VOX VOMITUS. I am your host, Jennifer Ann Gordon, the author of Pretty Ugly, The Japanese Box and Other Stories, the Hotel series, and I can start saying soon, even though soon is all relative. It's like 2 years from now, probably. We don't have a release date. Soon in publishing, the upcoming Perfect Wives, Perfect Lies, which is also my first non-horror novel.
Wow. I didn't realize.
I'll believe it when I see it.
I know some people read it and they're still like, it's horror. And I'm like, it's not. But joining me today, as always, is my Vox Vomitus vixen, my co-hostess with the mostest, Allison Martine Hubbard, author of The Bourbon Books, which includes Dibs, Since September, Move on Melinda, Climb the Salmon Ladder, Ranchers Take Manhattan, and there will be something hopefully out this Christmas time.
If I write it, go on.
If you write it. Joining us for her third time on our show today on her very book birthday. And also, it's Tonya Mitchell. But Tonya, in my Facebook memories, 4 years ago, yesterday was the anniversary of the first time you were on our show for Feigned Madness.
Yeah, this is my Nellie Bly book.
Yeah, so this is just like our Tonya Mitchell week. You are here today to talk about Needle and Bone. I've got some bones.
You got a bone.
Here. I got a bone. Oh gosh.
I don't have a needle. How about I got a thing full of screws. Is that helpful?
That is very helpful.
Probably not.
Adjacent.
So, Tonya, welcome back to Vox Vomitus. For our viewers who did not see you the 2 times you were on for A Feigned Madness and The Arsenic Eater's Wife, tell our viewers a little bit about you and then a little bit about Needle and Bone.
Okay. I debuted in 2020, which was probably the worst year to debut ever in the world.
Yes,
that's true.
Yeah.
We did that. That's a bad idea.
Because we found out later that a lot of people were reading during lockdown and all that.
Yeah.
But during it was like, of all the years I could have come out with a book, why was it 2020? But me and a whole bunch of other people.
I mean, you couldn't do a lot of live signings because the whole being right here to a person, they frowned on that.
Yeah. That first book was in the Gothic historical world, and I decided that I liked it so much that I wanted to stay there. That book was about a woman, a real biographical character who in the late 1880s checks into a mental institution for women as an undercover reporter so that she can sort of get the story out later. But you kind of don't know whether she's going to get out or not, and if she does, what's going to happen and all of that. And then, let's see, I guess 4 years later, it took me quite a while to get this next one done, was The Arsenic Eater's Wife. And that was a story that I found about a real poisoning in the UK. And it was a really intriguing arsenic case. And it was covered really on both sides of the Pacific because the woman who was charged with murdering her husband with arsenic was American, and she was sort of a minor heiress, so she was somewhat well known. And her husband was an Englishman, and they lived in Liverpool. So in its day, it was a huge trial that got a lot of press. And the more that I went down the rabbit hole on that one into poisons and who had motive and all of this, I thought, oh my God, this thing can write itself. Like there's so much intrigue going on in this creepy house that they had. So that was my second one. That was The Arsenic Eater's Wife. So again, going along that sort of gothy, murky, Victorian historical fiction, I decided I wanted to write about something else creepy. And so I happened to read a book called
Jennifer's got her skull.
This is my own copy. It's just full of like notes and stuff.
I'm like, you flagged that thing up. I love it.
Yeah, this was a real doctor in Philadelphia in the 1830s, 1840s, who was pioneering surgery on people who were considered monsters. So these are people who were born with birth defects like cleft palate or clubfoot, or they had had an accident, like they had been burned, all over their body or parts of their body, or they had a tumor growing on their face or their arm or whatever. A lot of that stuff wasn't happening for a really long time because they were on the outs of society. They weren't considered, I guess, worthy of operation. They were shamed and they were feared. But
and a
around
lot
the
of them
time,
didn't have money because they were shamed and feared,
Yeah,
and they were
right.
living on the streets. So
yeah.
oh,
And Dr. Mutter got his medical degree when he was 20. Back then, it only took a couple years to be a doctor. He got it. He was in Pennsylvania. He went to the University of Pennsylvania. They had a medical school. But he decided after he got his degree that he wanted to go to Paris because that's where the best doctors were and study under some of the best surgeons at the time.
for a
And
second, I thought you were going to say he wanted to go to Paris because that's where like the best deformity, like the best monsters. That's where
We
the
are not
Phantom of
saying
the
that.
No, but that's where the Phantom of the Opera is.
Yeah, it was a hotbed.
Hunchback of Notre Dame.
And the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Maybe he's onto something with that.
Maybe he was onto something. I don't know. I don't know who he could have been. So it was when he was watching some of the best surgeons in Paris do restorative, what they called reconstructive surgery, that he decided that he wanted to take what he had learned back to the United States, settle again in Pennsylvania. And when he did that, he became very soon the chair of the Department of Surgery, chair of surgery for Jefferson Medical School. Now, Jefferson isn't around anymore, but it was a very competitive school. The other big school was the University of Pennsylvania, which is where he had got his medical degree. And I was just fascinated with this guy. And all along the time that he's discovering how to make people, quote, normal, he's also collecting all of these oddities because he wants to understand and study what they are. So by the time my main character gets to Jefferson Medical School as an artist, he's already got these collections everywhere and he's ready to open a museum. And she is set to be the illustrator, the only illustrator for the college at the time. So after reading this book, Dr. Mutter's Marvels, she just sprang into my mind. For the first time, she was my first main character who's completely fictional. Because
I was
going to say, were you looking her up, Jennifer? Like, is she real?
I was like, okay, maybe she changed her name. So I was looking up like female artist, Mutter illustrations, Mutter museum.
Good. Then I made you think she was real to you then.
Oh yeah. And then I was like, Mutter, murder, blah, blah, like weird things pop up. None of which, I was like, oh, well, nope, not looking for that. Found a dinner theater that did like a weird murder mystery that like, and I'm like, nope, not that.
And it's set in the pit. That would be amazing. I would go to that.
I would go to that.
So long as they don't feed you like medieval time style where you're eating like a giant chicken bone or whatever, because that feels kind of wrong if you're watching surgery and chewing on a bone.
And you don't have a fork because they weren't invented yet. Only
no forks.
Just like eating with your hands and you're like
and a scalpel.
Look at that Mutter flap. That's a vegetarian. The most disgusting thing I've ever said.
Oh, are you a vegetarian? Are you really? I didn't know that.
I am.
And she can gross herself out with meat or flesh or any of this just so easily. So you want to get a rise out of her, just go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. Though I weirdly love medical oddities. I'm squeamish about everything, like eyeballs, scared of crabs, like all sorts of weird things. Apples if they're rotting. But I like go to ground beef. Oh god, that makes me feel woozy. But like going to a medical museum, I love it.
Is it because they're all safely in jars?
Fascinating.
I love the jars.
I know the wet specimens are still there that he collected. They're still there. I should say also that the museum has expanded over the years. They're still getting submissions. So a lot of his old stuff is there and the museum's named after him. He started it. It was part of something that he put in his will before he died. He wanted to make sure that it was almost like a teaching method for the students who would walk through there. But I mean, they have a slice of Albert Einstein's brain. They have like a huge iron lung. Yeah. She was like at it under a microscope if you want.
You're like, oh, I can see smarts.
I can see what smart looks like.
Right.
Ooh. That's the book my kids are always saying about our cat. You have a smooth brain, no ridges or lumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ideas slide right off.
So I love that this character popped into your head, this first, like, as you said, your first all fictional main character. And this, this novel takes place, of course, a lot in Philadelphia, in the Mutter Museum itself, or, well, what will be in the medical school. But it also takes place in New York City with also other real locations. So how did you, we're trying to be as the least spoiler-y we can, but how did you decide on the two, like, kind of main locations, main worlds of this?
Well, it needed to be a quest, because at the root of what the plot is about, someone is after Annis, who becomes the artist in Pennsylvania. And so I wanted that to be difficult. And I didn't want it to be her in Pennsylvania. I wanted her to be
down the street.
Else.
I know. Oh, Annis? Yeah. She's right there next to me.
Right there.
The only female.
She was easy to find. I just stood on a street corner until she walked by.
Yeah.
Well, and also not to spoil anything, but to have her want to flee, as opposed to it not just being hard to find her, but also her wanting to be hard to find.
Yes. Yes. And so I chose New York because, and this isn't really a spoiler, there's a magician in the book. And there were a lot of magic shows going on about the time. I mean, New York was huge. There were a lot of, museums and circuses and things like that. So that was an easy choice for me. Plus, I had studied New York City from my first book, from the Feigned Madness. So I kind of understood the geography, even though this book was, the Needle and Bone takes place like 40 years before the Nellie Bly story does. But I kind of knew like the island and Manhattan and what was where. And so it was easier for me to figure out, okay, where would she live if she was middle class? Where would this magician live if he wasn't, or if he wanted to hide after some things that have happened? And so that's kind of how New York City was born out.
Well, this book really spoke to me as a former magician's assistant and somebody who's like obsessed with
No
bones.
way!
Yes.
Way? Oh my gosh. I did not know that. Did you know that, Allison?
I did. And like there's parts, and this is not a spoiler, but there's parts where they're discussing like how tricks are done. I'm like, oh, you're not allowed to do that, breaking the magician's code. But considering this was also, well, I thought it was very fascinating because obviously these are the way tricks were done a very long time ago. And some of the same, I'm sure, techniques are done, but obviously some have been, have been updated and all that. But I just thought it was really interesting where he's like showing her how the trick is done. And I'm going, you are not allowed to reveal those things. This is going to end badly.
You'll never get into the Magician's Alliance now, Gabriel.
Never. I'll never get to go to the Magic Castle either, unless Neil Patrick Harris takes me. Please take me.
But I was very careful to make sure that whatever magic was going on was magic that I found that was happening at that time. So I just didn't make up stuff or assume that a magic trick now could be taken back to 1840 and be real or whatever. I found a lot of documentation about these were the magicians and these were the types of things that they were doing and how they were doing.
And like the illusions at the time were just like so quaint compared to like what we think of as like magic now. Now you're like, it's just like so over the top. And it's just like,
I made the Statue of Liberty disappear. This guy's like, she's floating sort of.
She's floating sort of a couple inches off the ground. And everyone's like, I've never seen anything like that.
Mind blown.
Right.
But I did love, like, you had all these inclusions, and we were talking before the show started about like the times when museums were kind of more private collections before they became a public thing. So I love how you talked about how Mutter, he did this as part of his will, but at the beginning there's kind of a different sort of museum, but like a traveling curiosity show that goes with the magic stuff. Yes, and I love that stuff because I do love that fine line there. And this is sort of off topic, but I just was so fascinated this summer, and I don't know if it's still happening, but anybody in the LA area, get up to the Natural History Museum because they've got an extra exhibit, and I don't know if it's still happening. If it's not, I'm sorry you missed it because it was really awesome. And it wasn't even really advertised. They have like, what about cats? I'm like, yay, cats. But they have all this stuff about rethinking how they do those kind of stuffed scenes, the whole style of a diorama and how they do it and why they did it. Yeah. And it's so fascinating because it does come from this kind of place of what's being used for science and what's being used for study, and even things, and this is like, it broke my heart, but it also made sense that like zoos would donate their dead animals to be used, because what else are you going to do with it? Like, why waste a perfectly good specimen that's in good condition and everything that just died of natural causes when we can preserve it and take samples and all that? But it's all part of that. And then going back to a time when it's like we're collecting oddities, and how would somebody from, you know, Philadelphia or New York ever have seen some of these animals?
Like a
because
zebra,
they wouldn't necessarily have seen them. Or like, what is that's an ostrich? Craziness. Like, they didn't have those. And I just found that so fascinating.
Yeah. There was, I was looking for a place like Scudder's, which was a real museum, like right in the heart of downtown, like right by City Hall. And it was just perfect for what I needed her to go in and see. Don't you love it when you're doing research and you find just the thing that you need and it matches so well with the story?
Yes, no. Jennifer travels the world and then finds a way to put them in books and goes, see, it was research. Like, that was a vacation and you were traveling through Europe. It was research. And I haven't gotten to do as much of that as I would like to. And there are a couple places I'll be like, I really do need to go there to confirm that what I said is accurate. And they're like, well, you have to stick with what you know. I'm like, I really don't want to write about my kids' schools in the inside of my house.
Yeah, I have a pretty boring life.
That's not where I want to go. Nobody wants to read that.
Yeah.
So had you been to the Mutter Museum before because you read the book and then you came up with the woman and then you went to the Mutter Museum? Is this
I was probably in the middle of writing the book when I went to the Mutter Museum. I was just looking at a good time, family wise, not getting in the way of like what the kids were doing and everything. I'm going to put my hair because it's really hot in here. And my husband, he was going like right by it to pick up a new car. And I was like, oh, let's go to the Mutter Museum. And it was perfect. It was absolutely freaking perfect. I could not have asked for a better time to do it, because then she had sort of just started, I think where I was she had just started working at the school. And so I needed to describe a lot of these specimens. And some of them are described in here and they're actually pictured. But I needed more, and I needed to know, like, well, what color were they and what size were they that this book wouldn't necessarily give me.
Also just like the visceral feeling of seeing something in person is so different. Like when you see like a wet specimen, like an ear floating in a jar, and you're like,
floating ear.
I love it. Yeah.
So I haven't been to the Mutter Museum, but we were saying this before the show. My husband and I were in Latvia last year on vacation, and we always go to museums when we're on vacation. And we went to a terrible museum. I can't even remember what it was. It's like, I've blocked it out, but it was like my husband's choice to go to this bad museum. And he was like, oh, this was a clunker. Like, we both knew it was a clunker. And he was like, I'm going to find something that's going to be so perfect. Don't worry. And like, he's like on his phone and he's like, I found something. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And he brought me to their Anatomy and Medical Oddities Museum.
Much better.
And I was like, thank you. I was like a kid in a disgusting candy store.
Yeah. An earwax jelly bean candy store.
It was it was like everything I could have wanted. He's like, see, I told you I'd find the perfect date for us.
Yeah.
See, I just
in a creepy way, but it worked for both of you guys. That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, there's a scene where Annis goes for a job interview. She goes into Dr. Mutter's office. And I wanted to describe that office like it would have been in his day, with all of the stuff that he was collecting. So, there's books and there's posters, but there's also like a hanging skeleton that's put together with twine.
And like, there's like a bone on the desk.
There's a bone on the desk. There's skeletons. I mean, it's creepy as hell. And she's just walking into this going, oh my God, what kind of place is this? But I felt like after I went to the museum, I had seen a lot of that stuff that I could describe it better.
And what I love is, earlier in the book, she's at the Scudder Museum by herself without a chaperone, and just the thought of her being like taking the horsing taking the omnibus, or I can't remember.
Omnibus.
Yes. Down to the museum by herself. It was so scandalous because it's like, I'm doing all this on my own. I don't have a chaperone. And now she's like holding a bone at a job interview. And she's like, I'm not grossed out by this.
Yeah.
Like, she's such an amazing person who she's just like, oh, a tumor? Interesting.
Yeah, she was interested by it. Not and he asked about that because in in that interview, he's already had 2 male artists who had a problem with drawing a lot of that stuff. And a lot of the people that are showing up at this medical school are people with birth defects and, have had horrible accidents and broken limbs and everything. And they didn't really like what they were doing. So he's very careful when he asks her, like, is any of this in the office bothering you? Because this is what you're going to be working around. This is what you're going to be drawing.
In fairness, I thought one of them just sucked, though. Like, he just wasn't, he's like, it's too symmetrical. It's not, like, he just wasn't very good at it. I don't know how bothered he was, as much as he just sucked as an artist.
Yeah, he was just a lazy artist.
Yeah, she wasn't lazy. She was very talented.
No, she was amazing.
Well, she was an amazing artist, and I love how she got to use her artistic gifts in a way that she never would have suspected, because when we begin, she's upset that she hasn't gotten more training and she isn't getting to use it. And, people are telling her, you just need to marry well. You don't think of this art thing. Just don't even bring up this art thing. Stop with the art thing. Yeah. But she's still getting to use it in a way that nobody would have been like, oh, by the way, you want to draw some gross things growing out of people's faces?
Yeah.
We have a job for you.
Yeah. In your own space, in your own studio with a skylight, which was very remarkable back then to have a skylight for
I was very jealous of this art studio. It's like, man, she has a skylight. Her easel is right underneath the natural light.
It's awesome. Well, I'm sure Jennifer wasn't as jealous of some of the other parts of the book and bad things that happen during parts, because some things don't always go well for all the characters in your book. And I can't really say more than that, but she is on the run for a reason, and bad things have happened in people's lives. Sometimes just, hey, people die young in these days, and consumption, and everybody's dying.
Everybody has consumption.
Everybody dies. Everybody has consumption.
Yeah, and Dieter would die of it very young. He was only like 50
did he?
when he died. Yeah. Well, actually, I think he was 48. He was 48. Yeah, he had been.
I got 1 more year.
I know. I'm just like,
consumption.
Well, he doesn't die in the book. It's not a spoiler. He's still living.
No, that's why we were both surprised, because he's a realistic character, and you treated him. I love the way you blended real people with your fictional characters in a way that we didn't know who was who. Yeah. From just reading it, because they all felt equally real and equally grounded. I just didn't know, like, whether you took a real person and then added backstory. I'm like, there's no way you would have known this, but authors are allowed to have their license with things. But when you make people completely up, you can do what you want.
Exactly. I was looking for a magician from the Scudder Museum who was nefarious, and I was like, nope, he's fictional. Oh, they're all nefarious. I know magicians. Implied. Yeah, it's implied.
They're
fictional with a really terrible backstory. I was a little concerned about how dark he was, because I thought, how do I have this in me to create this character like this? He's so morally reprehensible in just about every way that he could possibly be. But I'm like, you know what? He's the villain. He needs to be this way. I'm not going to make him nice.
He is, but you also gave him a backstory that explained kind of why he was like that. And
he wasn't just like a mustache twirling.
Both of us wanted to be doing this.
I know. We were
like enter bad guy with his twirling mustache. He wasn't like that. I made sure that he had a backstory that made sense with who he had become.
It did make sense. But also, he was very interesting.
Yeah, but also you can see him being somebody, especially because of the stage persona he has, being someone who could be charming and that you wouldn't think, Anna, stay away from this dude. He's obviously twirling his mustache, and he's not. Right. And so you can see how he would be someone who could approach people or be in a way that would get people to be vulnerable around him and wouldn't necessarily put their guard
give people free tickets to see a magic show, and
never accept those. Never.
Not in this
I would take
at least.
No,
don't do it. Don't do it, Annis. Don't do it.
I'll take it.
He was a master of illusion in more ways than one. It wasn't just when he was on stage. He was pretending a lot. And that's how he was able to get people close to him and be able to do what he did, which I won't say anything more about because I don't want to spoil it.
Right. I don't want to spoil it. But he was very clever and very, very intelligent for a person of his upbringing too. Yeah. Like he just, I don't want to say he did really well for himself for an absolute
he was a great achiever.
Psychotic.
Right. But
if it wasn't for the dark parts of him. Well. He was pretty successful.
But you made a very realistic villain in that way, because you gave him a backstory that made sense, and you could see following his trail, like, this is why he ended up like this. And not that you're like, oh, I feel so bad for you, don't hurt him, everybody. Like, you still hate him. There's a reason he's like that. And you can also see, like, well, where did he learn to read, and where did he learn to be this way, or to be able to do these things? And
why did he want to become a magician so bad? Why was that?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So do your kids read your books? Because a little while ago, when you were just like, how did I become this? Why do I like this? I'm like, do your children go like, Mom?
That's along the lines of,
what
how
is
did he make this character like so horrible? Like, he's so, I mean, you know, there's the bad guys in my other books, but, you know, nothing like this guy. They have not read this one yet. And I mean, they're grown. I mean, one is 20, the other 21, and the other two, the twins, are going to be like 20 and next month or whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, they're grown. They're still in college.
They're old enough. They can read it.
Handle
I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want them to.
Right. It's like, because all of a sudden, like, over Thanksgiving dinner, it's like, Mom is weird. Like, what? Because then they're just going to be like, why do you like this stuff, Mom? Like, why?
Well, and after,
why is this so like, ooh?
There was some of that when I was researching the Arsenic Eater's Wife. And
I would be like,
on poison coming in the mail. And I would take it out of the envelope, and they would just like, really, Mom? And I'm like, it's for research for my book.
Yeah, that's when they're like, Mom, I don't think you should be cooking Thanksgiving this year. I think someone else maybe should be doing it. Stay like, out of the kitchen. Put that down.
No powdered donuts for me, Mom.
No.
Powdered donuts.
Thank you.
Apple cider and arsenic donuts.
And that was the book that had like meat tea, didn't it? Like, it was. Like,
the meat tea. Oh,
Valentine's
on the meat tea,
which was a thing, and they made a lot of money on it.
I know that was much more disgusting than anything in Needle and Bone to me.
Yeah. Well, but now we have bone broth, which also sounds
vegan. I'm sure, vegetarian. Yeah, absolutely.
Meat
juice.
It's a meat juice. It's like vitamin B vegemin. It's good for you. Puts hair on your chest. That's what you need. But yeah, I do think that maybe your kids are probably old enough that even if they're looking at you like this, they're still going to appreciate the book and won't be so scandalized that their mother wrote it. Like, I think Jennifer's picturing children that are a little bit younger, like mine, who would not be allowed to read this book, except for my oldest. She'd be allowed to read it, but she would be squeamish because, like, she's scared of everything. And we got out of the car this morning and a butterfly came near her and she screamed.
Oh, yeah.
I can see that.
Butterfly.
This would scare her then.
So what are you researching and working on now? Is there any kind of tidbits you can give us? Because last time you were here, you did tell us that you were writing something and you had a book coming out that was going to be in the Mutter Museum. So we were like anxiously awaiting that for a year. So tell us.
I am working on the Paris Morgue, a story about the Paris Morgue. Do you guys know about the Paris Morgue?
No.
Not really. You mentioned that. And so I was just like, well, we aren't getting any lighter.
Do you guys listen to the Morbid podcast? Are you guys Morbid fans?
No.
I'm not religiously, but I have listened to it.
Okay. So they did this episode on the Paris Morgue, and I like had a moment. I was like washing dishes, and I'm like, oh my God, this could be a book idea. So the Paris Morgue lasted for about 100 years in Paris, from like roughly 1800 to 1900. There were two different buildings. They were finding so many people in and around the Seine River that they could not identify, that they needed a place to display the bodies so that the families could bury them. Okay. So, and this was the only morgue that's ever been like this. So the first building is literally like on the Seine, because they're like finding these bodies there and like boating them to the morgue. And they would place up to like 6 or 8 corpses, usually naked, on marble slabs, and people would come in and look for their lost loved one. But it became so popular because it was free that everyone wanted to be seen at the morgue. There were thousands and thousands of people lining up for years to see dead bodies just because they were curious. They actually didn't find.
Not gonna lie, I probably would have. That my husband would have been like, "Let's go on a date."
And for the first time in Paris, it was one of those things that you were doing if you were poor because it was a free amusement.
Yeah,
and you did it if you were rich because you wanted to be seen there. And this went on for like 100 years. So the second building, because they kind of outgrew that, the second building was in a slightly different place, but actually it was like right behind Notre Dame Cathedral. So talk about like heart of the city. It was larger. They could display more bodies. They had a refrigeration system so that the bodies would last longer. Oh. And they had wet water. They had cold water that would drip onto the bodies to keep them like fresher, especially like during the summer. I know. But what interested, and it's gruesome, but what interested me about this was that this was a pastime. Like they loved doing this. Yeah. And in the latter years of the better, bigger building, it had electricity. It was one of the first buildings to have electricity.
So could they do refrigeration then?
They were doing refrigeration because they wanted the bodies to last longer. But it also had autopsy rooms, and the police departments became connected with it, and the medical school. So
were
that more scientific through the years.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a place for display. It was also for anatomy, and they were doing what little CSI they could at the time. My book takes place, but it'll be like in the 1880s, before they were doing like a lot of like fancy stuff. But there's like autopsy rooms.
And those aren't open though, right? Like people couldn't watch an autopsy.
No, they could not.
Just check it.
I'm like, goodness.
How many lines we crossed
in here? And the medical community came involved, so they could, because it wasn't just the first iteration was more like, we need this body identified so the family can know and bury the body. Right. Later, it was more like, well, how did this person die? Is this a homicide? Yeah. Is this a suicide? And that's kind of what I'm playing on. Like in my book, there's going to be a string of women that come to the morgue to be displayed, and there's a common thread with them, and so they're trying to figure out like what's going on. So
when you say come to the morgue, they're on display. They aren't the ones
on display.
They're not like, oh, let's keep going to the morgue
for ladies' night.
Yeah. There's some actually famous cases of corpses there. Oh, let me just mention one more thing because I thought it was so interesting. Most of the corpses were men of pretty much like any age. Whenever there was a woman or children, the line would just, because people were because they were more rare and they wanted to know, like, who are these children? What did the woman look like? So, yeah.
What's so interesting me about, and I feel like that setting, the same way the medical school was in Needle and Bone, are just like such interesting places, because at the time it was so hard to find places where, as you just said, the very poor and the very rich commingled in such like literally next to each other. They could have conversations. So the way that you find these locations to bring every type of person together to weave into your stories is very interesting. Because I think a lot of times, especially with historical fiction, we get books about the upper class and their people, or, because they didn't mix.
Right. Yeah, there's
they
a
don't
lot
now
of,
either.
Of
they don't now, but
I was trying to think, what's the modern equivalent? I came up empty. Anybody know a modern? No, because the wealthy don't ride the subway. I mean, they might for like a lark, but it's not like that's how they're getting around.
The emergency room?
Yeah.
I still don't think so. Private doctor, not going to the emergency room. Their people called ahead.
Yeah.
The DMV.
The DMV.
Oh,
No, they have drivers. But otherwise, the DMV is the best cross section, because you want to drive, you're there, whether you like it or
quite
not.
a cross section it is.
Yes, but I don't think that would be a great setting for your next book, Tonya. Like, DMV historically, you're like,
and it's like 1977 at the DMV.
How about no? How about we let that one?
Yeah, I agree.
Not for me.
Boring.
So are you still in the research process of the Paris morgue book, or do you have characters?
I literally just started. I'm like literally on chapter 1 at this point.
Well, that's exciting.
I hope to be a little bit further along, but when you have a book come out, there's like stuff you have to stop and do, and you guys know what I'm talking about. But
then you've got to.
I want to get back to work on that.
Like, remember the book that you wrote and it's been out of your hands for a while? Go back to that one. I was reminding Tonya the characters' names in her book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Because
she's
like
like,
that, I get so embroiled in the next book by the time the older one comes out that sometimes I forget. But let me just hold this up because I haven't held it up before.
It's
So I need
pretty.
to get a new plaque for my wall.
You do.
It is a gorgeous cover.
Mm-hmm.
And
really
Allison and I both read the ebook, so we didn't. That's why I'm like, I couldn't hold it up.
Well, because it just came out. If we would have ordered it, it probably, considering how my new releases arrive, I would get it 4 days from now. So it would be a little late to have it for the show to hold up. So I need to.
Yeah, but you got your ebook. That's cool.
We got our ebooks. We just don't have anything cool to show and be like,
yeah,
didn't have that.
Cool. So, Tonya, thank you so much for being on our show for the third time.
Yay. I'll keep coming back. I love your show. It's awesome.
We're gonna have
you had us at Paris Morgue. Like again, we would have had you back if you wrote about the 1970s DMV, but we're just happier it's the Paris Morgue.
Exactly, because then I can use my skull again.
That's right. Oh, yeah. I need to get one of those for my table. I found a real looking, for like book, for signings,
Yes,
exactly. Baby what kind of thing.
I found it's a mandible. It's a human mandible, and it's just from Amazon. It looks so real, and that's what I keep my business cards in.
Perfect. You need an ear in a jar. You need one wet specimen.
Oh, I would love that. If I could find one, I would do that.
They sell them.
They probably do.
You think?
I've seen like a baby in a jar.
Oh God!
But that's like that's too much.
That's not.
Yeah.
That's
you just need like a foot in a jar.
Somebody. A foot in a jar. Somebody's toe.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
A missing finger, maybe.
Missing finger would be great. Just missing finger. Tonya, thank you. Everybody who is watching this live or watching it on the replay, make sure you check out Needle and Bone. It is available everywhere today, August 19th. Tonya's book birthday.
Happy book birthday! Thank you guys. It was great.
And we will see you all very soon. Bye.
Bye.